Good evening. Welcome back to Transformation Tuesday. How you guys doing? Welcome back to another episode of How to Hack Your Life, how to transform everything about your way of being, how to improve your productivity, how to manage your time better, and how to manage your life better. Tonight, I'm here to share with you how do we upgrade our emotional intelligence. Specifically, I'm going to be giving you my 5 secrets to boosting your emotional intelligence. Hello and welcome. My name is Chris Jackson. I'm here to deliver the best of what I know on how to boost your emotional intelligence. It's a powerful topic. It's one that I've studied, I've coached, I've trained on, and it's something I'm incredibly passionate about, and I'm going to be sharing with you the best of what I know on this topic for you tonight. I'm going to be sharing with you what's the fastest strategies to boost your emotional intelligence, why EQ, I call it emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence, is more important than IQ. Hey Mike, good to see you here, mate. Welcome aboard. And also how to enhance your self-awareness. Self-awareness is one of the major pillars of emotional intelligence. So I'm going to be unpacking how do you boost your emotion, how do you boost your self-awareness. And also I'm going to give you my 5 top hacks on how to boost that self-awareness. How do you then increase your emotional intelligence? So some practical strategies, some ways you can implement this in your life. So this is going to be incredibly powerful. So as always, get your notepad and pen out, 2 different colors, one column for taking notes, nuggets of wisdom, the other color for application, how you're going to apply this, how you're going to implement this in your life. So let's dive straight in. And for those of you that are there's a bit of an incentive for you guys to watch the whole show. I'm going to be offering a bit of a special bonus at the end with regards to emotional intelligence to help you guys unpack this and take it to a whole nother level of depth. So stay tuned and I'll mention a bit of a special offer coming towards the end of the show. So first of all, we need to understand, well, what do we mean when we're talking about emotional intelligence? Because it can be a bit of a confusing concept. It can be a bit of a weird topic that no one really understands. Is it kind of like IQ? Is it, what is this? What's the whole point of us even talking about this? And the most important thing to recognize is that our emotional intelligence is the foundation of how we operate. It's how we do everything. We are emotional creatures. We are creatures of habit. We are very complex beings where there's so many interrelated and overlapping forces, emotions, memories, language, belief systems, core values. There's so many different elements that make up the human being that we've got to understand emotion is a core part of that. Hi Shemaine, good to see you here. Welcome back. So emotion, how we understand our emotions and how we use our emotions is one of the most foundational skills that we could ever learn as a human being. So we simply must master this skill that we call emotional intelligence. It's a skill set, and it's kind of a little bit different to IQ because your emotional intelligence is really actually quite simple to upgrade and improve, and I'm going to give you some major strategies on how to do that. So this is the really inspiring thing about emotional intelligence, is that it's completely learnable. Anyone can boost their emotional intelligence. Anyone can be highly proficient at emotional intelligence. It's not some mystical gift that it's not this mystical gift that's only meant for the select few. Emotional intelligence is something every single person can master, and I work with my clients to help every single one of them master this, and it's a skill. So it's really important because I'm going to give you the definition of emotional intelligence because this is critical. Your emotional quotient, so EQ, I'm just going to call it EQ for simplicity. Your emotional quotient, your EQ, which is the standardized test for emotional intelligence. Your EQ is a measure of your ability to sense, to understand, and effectively apply the power of your emotions in yourself and in others to facilitate high levels of collaboration and productivity. So that means that it's the skill set of understanding self, understanding our own internal workings to be more productive, which also contributes to more income, which means we also have better relationships, which means that we ultimately are living the highest quality life that we can possibly live. So when we understand our emotions, when we understand ourselves, we become empowered. We become totally empowered to start to change all of our results. So Aristotle said that knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And it's true. This whole conversation is about knowing yourself. Emotional intelligence is knowing yourself. The greater that you know yourself, the more that you know about yourself, the more empowered you are to understand and utilize your emotions. We know we've all got emotions, and we can either use our emotions as fuel, or they can be like an anchor, pulling a boat back to stop it from accelerating. So we've got to understand, well, these things that we call emotions, they are fuel. They can be fuel, or they cannot be fuel. So this is a resource we need to tap into and understand. And the quicker that we can understand our emotions and utilize them, the greater results we can create across the board in every single dimension of life. It's really important to know that this has been studied, this has been documented, this is something that's now an official field of psychology. So this is now something that's real. This is really important. So if you don't know about emotional intelligence, if you haven't been tested for emotional intelligence, if you don't yet understand it, I can't emphasize enough just how important this is to understand this concept, because when you understand this, you'll notice your results, your ability to generate results, to be motivated, to be inspired, to manage the stressful situations in life, the ability to earn more money, the ability to communicate. It's cross-contextual, meaning that when you boost your emotional intelligence, it boosts every other area of your life. And the area that we're going to be talking about tonight within emotional intelligence is one of the 5 major pillars of emotional intelligence, which tonight is self-awareness. Now, we don't have time to go into the other 4 major pillars of emotional intelligence. However, tonight I'm going to go into some very, very powerful detail around how you can maximize your self-awareness and how you can boost it through the roof using some pretty powerful tools. Now, Daniel Goleman, who was the psychologist that really kicked off this study back in 1995, he's on record saying that emotional intelligence is actually more important than IQ, than your intelligence quotient. And there's a lot of studies out there. Forbes magazine have done studies about the power of emotional intelligence. Forbes magazine have found that for every 1 point that you increase your EQ by, that equates to a 1,750 Australian dollar increase in your salary per year. So very, very important information to know. This is not just something that's airy-fairy and fluffy. They've got documented studies. They've got a lot of studies. I'll mention another study. There's also a study of around 2,000 hiring managers that was done back in 2011. And 75% of the hiring managers said they would favor someone with a higher EQ rather than a higher IQ. So this is powerful information. This is powerful data that's real. So why am I telling you this? Well, the point of me telling you this, the point of me sharing this with you, is so that you can understand that this truly matters. This conversation matters. And if we don't understand our emotional world, if we don't understand our emotional intelligence, we are at a severe disadvantage if we're looking to compete in business, if we're looking to be functional in relationships, if we're looking to get the most out of ourselves, if you're looking to be a professional human being like I am, then this is something that you're going to want to really, truly master. So let's take a bit more of a closer look at it. So I mentioned that your emotional intelligence, you can boost it. You can boost it through the roof. It's uncapped. It's unlimited. When I say that, I mean typically when you take a test, you can get scored between 0 and 100, right? So there's a maximum of 100. Now there's nothing stopping anyone from reaching an emotional intelligence quotient of 100. It's a skill. All these things that we're talking about tonight are skill sets. It's simply awarenesses, it's understandings, and it's things that we can master about ourselves. It's knowing thyself. When you have complete knowing of self, you can get to 100% emotional intelligence. So this is just simply a journey. It's like strength training. It's like going to the gym and lifting weights and building the weights up day after day after day. This is totally a skill that's refinable, and you can improve it day by day. Now, as I said, the first major pillar of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So, well, what do I mean by self-awareness? Well, what I mean by self-awareness is it's your ability to recognize and understand your moods, your emotions, and your drives, as well as the effect on others. So I'd love to know, for you guys watching, what do you think your self-awareness is? If you're going to rank yourself, if you were going to assess yourself on how good do you think your self-awareness is, what would you say? And most people would like to say, well, I think my self-awareness is pretty good. Well, most people would say that because they can only evaluate their self-awareness within the self-awareness that they have to evaluate themselves. So without a benchmark, without an assessment, there's no real way of gauging what is your level of self-awareness unless you actually do a standardized test. So this is what I thought. I thought my self-awareness was amazing until I did a test, and then I realized, I've got some gaps. I've got some areas I need to improve on. So this is the great thing about an emotional intelligence test, is when you do a test, it shows you the gaps. It's like when you put, for those of you that know what a dyno is when you put a car in a garage and you can actually test the horsepower of the car on a machine. Well, it's the same thing with emotional intelligence. You can put yourself through an assessment and you can understand what is your emotional intelligence. It's a test, it's a standardized test, which is great because you can understand where you're at. You can totally, and through that awareness, you can totally upgrade your emotional intelligence, which I love, it's fantastic because it's available to everyone. And it's so simple. Literally, to do this test, it takes less than 10 minutes and it's amazing. The information, the insights are profound. So let's get into, well, how do we actually improve our self-awareness? You're saying, Chris, tell me, how do I improve my self-awareness? Well, the very first thing is, I definitely recommend taking an emotional intelligence test, taking an assessment. Now, you can take an assessment. There's plenty of rudimentary ones that you can do online. If you want to take a high quality one that's validated, that's a really high professional one, I offer them to my clients that I do. Now, I've got a special offer. If you stick around to the end, I've got a couple of bonuses that I'm going to be giving away as a special gift for those of you that are on the call today, on the broadcast. But definitely get yourself an emotional intelligence test. Do the assessment so you can have the data, so you can have the blood test, so you can see how you're doing, so you can gauge where you're at. So that's the first thing. Number two, you've got to keep a list of all the triggers. Now, what do I mean by triggers? Any of these emotional, I call them flamethrower moments, any moments where you're emotionally reactionary, any moments where you fly off the handles, any moments where life gets the better of you and you indulge in any of the negative emotions like resistance, fear, frustration, anger. You know, you guys can relate to experiencing some kind of flamethrower moment where you react and you kind of feel, oh my God, I've just been triggered, I've just been reacted. It's like someone's pushed your hot button. Hey Eugenia, good to see you here. Hey Rod, good to see you too. So you've got to really evaluate what are those moments that trigger you, because it's those moments where if we are reactionary as opposed to responding, that's the key distinction here. A trigger is when we react. If we are now reacting, well, we're no longer in control. We no longer are choosing our emotions. We are letting our emotions happen to us. Now, this can have some significant degrees on amounts of problems. If you're an employer, if you're a boss, if you're in a team, if you're in a relationship, and if you get triggered, well, good luck. If you've now been triggered and you're now feeling angry, frustrated, sad, bitter, disappointed, well, it's very disempowering. It's not the place you want to be. It's not a place where you can make high quality decisions. When you're in a negative emotion and when you've been triggered, it's like the equivalent of being hungover. You're not in a peak emotional state to be able to make high quality decisions, to be able to perform at your best, to be able to manage yourself, to be able to get stuff done, to be productive. You just simply can't function at your best. So being aware of when you get triggered and your emotional state is one of the foundational elements of high performance. If you wanted to perform at the peak level, like a sustained level of peak performance, you've got to get really, really clear and self-aware about what are the things that trigger you. Now, that's one of the first steps, is awareness of what triggers you. So I recommend that you actually keep a list. So keep a list. Now, for everyone watching, and for those who've been following me for a while, you'll know that I'm big on evaluating your life. I recommend every single human being has a reflection journal. Now, in that journal, you want to reflect on absolutely everything in your life. You want to reflect on everything. This is the place where you evaluate your whole entire being. This is where you evaluate all your beliefs, your fears, your limitations, your goals, your aspirations, your dreams, your relationships, your business. You want to evaluate life. You want to turn your life into a science. You want to turn your life into a complete masterpiece. Now, the way to do that, or one of the ways to do that, is in your journal that you're keeping a log of all the experiences, all the challenges and everything you want to experience. You want to keep a specific list of, what are my triggers? What are those moments that trigger me, that really push my buttons, where I then react? Now, that's the first element. You've got to become aware of it. Now, the next part of that, which is part 3, the third step, is you've got to understand, well, what's that all about? You've got to go hunting. You've got to go sifting through that experience to now go, rightio, well, this emotion has now become present within my awareness. Now, the emotion is here to give you information. Emotion is information. Emotion is there to tell you where's the misalignment. Emotion is like a red flashing light on the dash of your car saying, alert, there's something to pay attention to. So it's really important that when an emotion happens, when a trigger moment like that happens, you evaluate it. You say, well, what's underneath it? You've got to unpack it. You've got to look into it and go, well, how am I doing that? And you've got to look at things like, typically there'll be judgment involved. You'll be diminishing either yourself, you'll be diminishing someone else, there might be complaining, there might be blame, there might be playing a victim, there might be not taking responsibility. It could be all sorts of things that are unfolding. So you've got to take a look at it. So once it's on your list as being identified that that moment happened, it's now your responsibility to take a closer look at it. And you've got to unpack it. So those are the questions to ask these are the questions, these are the important questions you've got to ask to unpack. How do I actually get some benefit from this experience? And you want to ask, well, who are you judging? It'll either be yourself or someone else, or maybe the scenario in general. Maybe ask, where's the fear? What's the fear? What's the resistance? Maybe you need to forgive someone. Maybe you need to have compassion for someone. You've got to start sifting through and looking, rightio, what action do I need to take? What perspective shift do I need to create? What belief change? What level of compassion or forgiveness or awareness of self do I need to generate in order to overcome this trigger? And so that's a journey. And again, when I work with my clients, I can help my clients figure it out pretty quickly in a matter of minutes. Now, if you're reflecting on your own, yeah, it's going to take a bit of time. It takes a little bit longer to sift through it to work out, why am I being triggered? What's underneath that? And for some people, it can be very complex. Maybe there's something in your past. Maybe something happened 20 years ago. Something happened when you were a kid. And then when that same thing happens again, you get triggered. Now, this is a classic example is for some people when they go home for Christmas, right? They get triggered maybe by family. Maybe all these memories, all these emotional experiences get triggered and come flooding back. So let me know if you can resonate with when certain people say certain words or say certain things. Maybe people tell you to do things. Maybe people tell you in a particular tonality that doesn't resonate with you, and you get triggered. That information is giving you the gift of how do I move beyond it? Because you might just have to forgive them, have compassion for them. Maybe you need to speak your truth. Maybe you need to enforce your boundaries. Maybe you need to remove yourself from the situation. So you've got to understand, well, what is it that I need to do to bring myself back into internal alignment within myself so that the trigger doesn't exist. So powerful process. The fourth step is you want to now start to set up some protocols. Now that you're aware of the trigger, you want to create some sort of like a military operation. You know, if this event happens, I execute this protocol. I execute this protocol to eliminate or avoid that trigger. So for example, it might be on Christmas. If you know that you get triggered on Christmas Day hanging around family, you would execute a protocol, or you would prepare yourself for, you know, that most likely someone's going to say something, someone's going to do something, and you can prepare yourself. You know, okay, I can forecast that this is going to be challenging. And therefore you can reinforce yourself emotionally. You can prepare yourself to maybe have a heightened degree of compassion. Maybe have forgiveness in advance. Maybe recognize, maybe the way that you're seeing the situation is from a place of disempowerment or victimhood. Maybe you need to have some compassion. So you've got to start recognizing and forecasting and future projecting, okay, if I'm going to be placed in that situation, how am I going to now handle that? So you can now plan, you can plot, and you can develop strategies for how you're going to then manage that. So this is now where you're thinking in advance. You're now preparing yourself. It's like maybe going in for battle. Right, what are the preparations I need to prepare myself? How do I defend myself? How do I actually sustain myself? So this is the questions you've got to ask to deal with these situations that are going to arise. The fifth element, hey Kaz, good to see you here. The fifth element that you really have to master is understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. So this is taking a deeper look from a self-awareness perspective and saying, rightio, what am I really, really good at? What am I not so good at? Now this extends into everything, not just your skills, your knowledge and your experience, but also the parts of maybe the soft skills, like the things like compassion, empathy, things like listening. Where are the elements within understanding and communicating with other human beings what are those elements that are missing within you? And you've got to evaluate yourself. So, as my good mate Aristotle says, he says, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So if you don't know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, well, you've got plenty of blind spots. How can you possibly be the highest, most professional, most competent version of you if you haven't done an assessment? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? It's like, when you're driving in a car. If you don't know what your weaknesses are, it's like driving along and you've got a blind spot just behind you, and you might just merge into a car that's just driving in your blind spot. Well, it's the same thing in life. If we don't have awareness of the weaknesses, then we're going to come unstuck. So we need to, and this is a conversation that comes a lot. People ask, Chris, what should I focus on? My strengths or my weaknesses? Well, there's no absolutes here. You've got to focus on both. You've got to focus on your strengths and your weaknesses. And this is a classic example of when you have the skill of self-awareness, you can evaluate, or based on my strengths and weaknesses, which are the ones that I want to work on that are going to provide the greatest net benefit to my life. So it's not a simple black and white answer, focus on your strengths or focus on your weaknesses. It depends. It depends what you want to create in your life. It depends what your purpose is. It depends where you're at. It depends if you want to earn more money, if you want to have a higher quality relationship. It depends if you want to be fitter, healthier. It depends if you want to grow your business. There's going to be thousands of different strengths and weaknesses you can focus on, but you first need to have awareness of what are the strengths and the weaknesses so you can make an informed decision about, right, I've got a list of strengths, I've now got a list of weaknesses. Let's take a look at them. Which ones are important? Which ones are going to move the needle the most? Which of these strengths and weaknesses are actually going to make an impact? Because there might be some weaknesses that are not important. There might be some weaknesses that you just draw a line through and go, well, yeah, I'm not strong at that. Does it matter? Maybe not. Maybe it does. Maybe that weakness could be the single biggest thing that's limiting you in your life. You've got to evaluate it. So this is why having an awareness of strengths and weaknesses is one of the most powerful things that anyone can do in a position of, leadership. I would say mentoring, coaching. If you're a parent, if you're in a job, if you're in a business, you've got to know about yourself. You've got to understand yourself. You've got to understand what are you good at, what are you not so good at. And then from that, you've then got to create what I call a growth curriculum. You've got to design a curriculum for how you're going to approach your strengths and weaknesses. Because we've all got weaknesses. We need a tactical, planned approach that's designed out. And I recommend we design out a 12-month personal growth curriculum, which identifies all those different areas. What are all the weaknesses? What are the strengths? What are the skills I want to acquire? What are the experiences that I need to get? What are the talents and the abilities that I need to nurture or cultivate? So you've got to get tactical with what are the books I've got to read? What are the courses I've got to study? Who are the thought leaders I need to be following? Right? What's the education program I've got to put myself through to take myself to that next level? Because if we don't get tactical and very, very logical about our personal development, well, 5 years, 10 years, your life is going to go past and you're going to look back and think, well, maybe I should have worked on some of those weaknesses. Maybe I should have cultivated some of those strengths. So we've got to get really, really deliberate about how we're pursuing our conscious growth. Conscious growth is a very, very deliberate process. This whole process is a deliberate process. So the more deliberate that you get about your life, the more predictable your results are. So I recommend, I'll just give you guys some other couple of nuggets. You've got to be planning your life on a weekly basis. You've got to be planning your life on a daily basis. You've got to be planning your life also on a yearly basis. What are the major goals, aspirations, and projects you want to create on a yearly basis? So we have to become super conscious about every aspect of our growth, our personal development, your growth curriculum, your strengths and your weaknesses. You've got to take an emotional intelligence assessment and you've got to have it unpacked so someone can explain to you what it actually means. Otherwise, it's like just getting a blood test and you're looking through a whole lot of numbers and a lot of numbers and words and you have no idea what it even means. Well, does that mean I've got low iron or high iron, or does that mean I've got low blood pressure? So when you do one of these emotional intelligence assessments, it helps you unpack and explore what do I actually need to work on. So they are my recommendations. They are my strategies for how to boost your self-awareness. And if you just focus on those that I've mentioned, and even if you were to just focus on those for the rest of the year, there is enough work to keep you occupied for a whole entire year, just looking at that, I guarantee you. So as always, the important thing here is to note the wisdom, note the information, but then how are you going to apply? How are you going to implement this? What are you going to now do differently day to day or during your week or during your year that's now going to implement and embody these practices? And I definitely, as I said, I definitely recommend having that journal which you can review your life I do it every single evening. I review my whole entire day. And as I'm going through my day, I have my misalignment journal next to me. When I have a moment where I'm emotionally triggered, I write it down, or I put it in my phone. I become aware of it. I then analyze it. I understand it. I unpack it. Once you've unpacked it, you then become empowered to go, that's what was going on. Great, good to know. Next time it happens, I'm going to take evasive action. I'm going to implement something. I'm going to change my perspective, and I'm going to eliminate it from my experience. That is someone who's highly emotionally intelligent. That's the way they approach their life. They evaluate the whole entire life and they go, right, if I was going to do my day over again today, what would I do differently? Now, your awareness of what happened in that day, that's what we're talking about, self-awareness. So even just by asking these questions, you'll find your self-awareness improves. The questions like, what did I experience today? What emotions did I experience today, both positive and negative? What were the challenges that I had today? If I could do today over again, what would I improve? So these are the types of questions you've got to start asking that improve your self-awareness. So that's self-awareness, which is the first of 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. So we've just unpacked self-awareness today. So as you can imagine, there is a lot to emotional intelligence. This is a huge field of psychology, and I've just given you a little bit of a nugget tonight that I trust is going to help you implement some of these things that's going to improve your self-awareness, that's going to improve your emotional intelligence. And what this is really about is it's not just about working on self. I mean, this is a major benefit, is you obviously get to improve yourself, you get to develop yourself, but the major benefit of this is earning more money, getting more time back, higher quality relationships, right? More effective communication, higher quality of life, right? Less ability to be influenced by stress. So these are all the things that you gain by improving your self-awareness and your emotional intelligence. And yes, the money is important, but ultimately I would say the far more important aspect of the benefit of this conversation is quality of life, is a sense of joy, a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, a sense of escaping the stress and the unnecessary suffering that we as humans tend to do sometimes. So glad you liked the conversation, Kaz. Good to hear from you. So that, in a nutshell, that's a real simple, quick unpack of self-awareness, which is, as I said, is the first of 5 major pillars of emotional intelligence. So I've got a special bonus today, which is something that I don't even normally offer. For people that want to work with me for one-on-one coaching, it's a 12-month journey. So people that are totally committed. I do have one spot in my calendar coming up next week available for anyone that wants an EQ assessment. So for anyone that wants an EQ assessment, send me a message, send us a message, and one of my team will get back to you. We'll let you know about that when it's coming up. As I said, I don't even offer these really one-offs anymore. So if it resonates with you, drop a comment below saying EQ, yes please, and one of my team guys will send you guys a message, and we'll see if we can hook you guys up with that. So that's it for emotional intelligence, self-awareness. So guys, this is powerful stuff. Trust me, use it or lose it. Take everything here, figure out how you're going to apply it, integrate it into your daily experience, make it part of your daily practice. Make these questions part of your daily review process. Create a misalignment journal, become aware of the misalignment, become aware of the triggers, unpack the triggers, figure out what it is within you that's creating the resistance. What is it that we need to move beyond? What's the information from our emotions telling us about how we can evolve, how we can grow, how we can become more professional human beings? So that's all for this week, guys. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. Next week, I've got a powerful episode coming up for you guys, which is all about how to maximize your productivity using planning. So for those of you that want to be even more productive, those who want to get more done, if you want to save time so you can finish work earlier, get out and do some more empowering things with your life, this is going to be a game-changing episode, because I'm going to show you how you can save so much time by planning your day, your week, your year, your life, by being very, very tactical and very strategical with how you plan your day, which is ultimately how do you make decisions in life. So if that resonates with you, if you're looking to be more productive in whatever your endeavors are in life, you're going to love that episode next week. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks, Charmaine. Thanks, Kaz. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week for another amazing Transformation Tuesday. As always, lots of love. Wishing you guys a fantastic week. Bye for now.